Today is Tuesday, July 2nd. We'll explain a landmark Supreme Court decision about the power of the presidency and how it could impact former President Trump's criminal cases. Also, the earliest Category 5 storm ever on record. Plus, new state laws impact everything from abortions to AI to edibles. The latest updates in Boeing's turnaround plan. And we'll introduce you to the youngest athlete set to compete for Team USA in Paris. Those stories and even more news to know today next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a historic immunity ruling that declares a new definition of presidential power and raises the bar for prosecuting former President Trump. This was another 6-3 ruling across ideological lines. It says presidents like Trump cannot be prosecuted for official acts as president, but they can face trial for unofficial acts. The court made it clear that not everything a president does is official. Chief Justice John Roberts says lower courts will now need to decide exactly what conduct presidents can be prosecuted for. But already he has said Trump likely cannot be tried for his contacts with Justice Department officials or with former Vice President Mike Pence in the lead up to the January 6th Capitol riot. So this could make a big difference in his federal election interference case and in the case out of Georgia. Former President Trump responded to call it a, quote, big win for our Constitution and democracy. He and other supporters have argued this was a necessary ruling to give all presidents the ability to make tough decisions without worrying about being prosecuted. But not everyone is happy with this decision. There was a deep divide on the court, with the 3 liberal justices strongly dissenting. In fact, Justice Sonia Sotomayor says she now has fear for our democracy, since according to the ruling, presidents are becoming, quote, a king above the law. And in a televised speech from the White House last night, President Biden called the ruling a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So far, the special counsel in Trump's federal election interference case has not commented. In the past, the DOJ has said the prosecution will move forward in one way or another. But reports say it's highly unlikely that will happen before the November election. And if Trump wins that election, he may never go to trial in the case, since it goes against current DOJ policy to prosecute a sitting president. We will be talking and explaining more about this decision and its potential implications with a legal expert on Friday. So stay tuned. The U.S. Supreme Court also took up a couple of controversial social media laws. This all goes back to 2021, in the wake of the Capitol riot, when Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube banned then-President Trump. In response, Florida made it illegal for tech companies to ban any candidate for office in the state. Then, Texas passed its own law, keeping platforms from taking down any political content, period. The state said social media is where public discourse happens, and the private companies that operate the platforms have no right to interfere, sort of how a phone company cannot stop someone from making a call. But 2 tech industry groups disagreed, saying the companies do have the right to make decisions about their platforms under the First Amendment, just like a newspaper gets to decide what runs in its pages. So those industry groups sued Texas and Florida. The question was considered a significant case that had the potential to rewrite the rules for online free speech. And this case also seemed to divide justices, with some of them being skeptical of arguments on both sides. But in the end, the High Court unanimously decided to send the cases back to lower courts for more review. And with that, the 2 state laws are still on hold. Hurricane Beryl has now strengthened to an extremely dangerous Category 5 storm. In fact, it's the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record. It's packing winds of nearly 160 miles an hour with even higher gusts, and it's already causing major destruction across the Caribbean. Hundreds of homes and buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Many are left with no water or electricity, and communications are down across a few islands. That's made it tough to get accurate reports on injuries and property damage. But at least one person has been confirmed killed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Today, Hurricane Beryl is on track to move across the southeastern and central Caribbean Sea, and it's expected to pass near Jamaica by tomorrow. Eventually, it could have an impact on the mainland U.S., but for now, it's too early to say. This storm is being fueled by abnormally warm ocean waters in the Atlantic, and now forecasters worry it could be a sign of a historically busy hurricane season ahead. Animal rescue teams were able to save more than 100 dolphins off the coast of Cape Cod this week. They were stranded in dangerously shallow waters. In fact, it was one of the largest mass stranding events ever witnessed in the area. And animal welfare groups say this is just another example of oceans changing and animals having a tough time adapting to the change. Herding dolphins into deeper waters can be tricky because they're social animals that tend to follow each other. That's actually how 125 of them got stuck in the first place. It took 150 people 12 hours to herd the dolphins to safety. But thankfully, rescuers were able to save most of them. More news still coming up. But first, this episode is sponsored by Boll & Branch. If you're looking for bedding that will help you feel cooler and more comfortable this summer, I definitely recommend Boll & Branch. They have great options for those who run hot, like 100% organic cotton percale that's made with a naturally cooling weave, or their linen, made from European flax to be light, airy, and soft. Or stick with their best-selling 100% organic cotton signature hemmed sheets. You really can't go wrong. We at home have 2 sets of Boll & Branch sheets because after we bought one, we knew we didn't want to sleep on any other sheets ever again. Boll & Branch sheets are super soft, they're breathable, and get this, they actually get softer with each wash. They also have all those extra little things that I appreciate, like top and bottom tags, so making our bed is that much easier. But don't just take my word for it. Boll & Branch actually gives you a 30-night worry-free guarantee with free shipping and returns on all U.S. orders. So get your coolest, most comfortable sleep with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets when you use promo code Newsworthy at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com with the promo code Newsworthy for 15% off plus free shipping. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Okay, now back to the news. Today marks exactly 60 years since the Civil Rights Act was signed into law. It outlawed segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination based on race, color, sex, religion, or national origin. When President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the law, he called it a proud triumph in a long struggle for freedom. Across the country, civil rights groups, scholars, and others have commemorated the landmark law with reports, panels, and rallies. Many of them have reflected back on how far the country has come since the law was first signed in 1964. Like how the life expectancy of Black people has grown and how they've been able to get better jobs and a better education. But others spoke about how far they think the U.S. still has to go to achieve the law's full potential. They spoke about new laws they consider discriminatory and proposed others to better support freedom, justice, and equality. A bunch of new state laws went into effect this week. For example, there's a new law in California that says bars and nightclubs that only serve customers 21 and older must give out kits for drug testing drinks, either for free or for cheap. And Iowa has banned selling hemp-infused food and drinks to anyone younger than 21. In Kansas, abortion providers must ask patients why they're deciding to get an abortion, though patients don't actually have to answer if they don't want to. Also, Tennessee is becoming the first state to ban using performers' voices without their authorization, meant to protect musicians from being impersonated by artificial intelligence. These are just a few of the many laws that have gone into effect around the country this week, so you may want to look up your state to see exactly what will now be enforced. Boeing has decided to take over operations at one of its top suppliers. The plane maker acquired Spirit Aerosystems, which makes key parts for the 737 MAX jet. Federal investigators actually think the door plug panel that blew off a 737 MAX 9 jet earlier this year was installed at Spirit's Kansas factory, then shipped to Boeing's Washington factory for assembly. And now Boeing says the deal will give it more oversight and control over manufacturing. It's valued at nearly $5 billion, and regulators still need to sign off. But the companies expect the deal to close by the middle of next year. Separately, the U.S. Justice Department has reportedly presented Boeing with a plea deal over charges that accuse the plane maker of conspiring to defraud the FAA. They're tied to the development of 737 MAX planes, 2 of which crashed in 2018 and 2019, killing hundreds of people. At first, Boeing was protected from prosecution under a settlement. But now the DOJ says Boeing did not hold up its end of the deal since it did not install and maintain a certain compliance program. The DOJ apparently told Boeing it could either plead guilty or go to trial. If it decides to plead guilty, Boeing would have to pay a fine and enter a 3-year probationary period. But if not, a conviction could bring even harsher penalties. Boeing apparently has until the end of the week to respond to the plea deal offer. There's another sign DVDs are becoming a thing of the past. The owner of Redbox, called Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment, filed for bankruptcy. The company says it accumulated nearly $1 billion in debt. It owes money to more than 500 creditors, including stores like Walmart and Walgreens, and Hollywood studios like Sony, Lionsgate, and Warner Brothers. Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment stock has plummeted nearly 90% over the past year and was trading at around 12 cents yesterday following the bankruptcy news. At least for now, though, Redbox still has about 34,000 DVD rental kiosks around the U.S., mostly at grocery and drugstores. This year's Olympics are going to be featuring some of America's youngest talents. Athletes have been competing in recent weeks for a chance to join Team USA ahead of the Paris Olympics later this month. Among those who have qualified include Hesley Rivera, who earned a coveted spot on the women's gymnastics team. Hesley just turned 16 years old, and she's now the youngest athlete in the entire U.S. delegation headed to the Summer Olympics. The rest of the women's gymnastics team is made up of Olympic veterans Simone Biles, Suni Lee, Jade Carey, and Jordan Chiles. But Rivera isn't the only teenager headed to Paris. 16-year-old Quincy Wilson is becoming the youngest male track Olympian in Team USA history. He qualified for the 400-meter relay team along with Quincy Hall, Michael Norman, and Chris Bailey. The 2024 Paris Olympics will begin on July 26. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, a quick break because this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. There are so many parts of our lives that can be compared to others. Career, house, parenting, the list goes on. And while we all probably know comparison never really helps us, it can be hard to avoid. Whenever I get the urge to compare, because let's be honest, we all do at least sometimes, I can usually catch myself doing it now. Stop and try to reset into a more grateful, gracious mindset. It's thanks to strategies I've learned in therapy. Therapy is a great place to learn how to focus on what you really want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. I really think most everyone can benefit from therapy. So if you're interested but not sure where to start, BetterHelp makes it easy. It's entirely online and designed to suit your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, where did the world's first cell phone call take place? Be sure to tune in next Tuesday to hear the answer. As for last week's trivia question, what is the space between your eyebrows called? The answer is the glabella. It's actually derived from the Latin word that means smooth and hairless. But as you know, that part of the face is not always so smooth and hairless. Our human ancestors, like Neanderthals, sported prominent unibrows, which are thought to have evolved as a way to display social dominance. Women in ancient Greece also saw the unibrow as beautiful, so much so that they'd paint soot on that area to make it look like they had one. Throughout the centuries, fashion's notion of the unibrow has changed, but you never know what might be the next glabella trend in the future. Thanks for listening and following us in your favorite podcast app. We'll be back tomorrow with more news you need to know before the holiday weekend. Until then, have a great day.